The first thing that I want to do is to run a little test, because this is a kind of like a university space. I want to run a little test. This is a test that you've probably seen before. Which of those lines is the longer line? Guys, can you tell me? You've done this before. Which line is the longer line? Everybody that says A, put their hands up. Everybody that says B, put their hands up. Everybody that says they're the same, put their hands up. Okay, so now, you guys, why do you think they're the same? Because we learned that they were the same, that we've taken that as a rule that we understand. As soon as we see this test, we think it's the same, but they're not the same. The bottom one is 10% shorter, or 10% shorter than the other. Okay, and what happened? I changed the rules. We now have a completely different set of rules. And the rules are that the things that you thought were true are now no longer true. Okay, I want to ask you another question. This sentence has got 4 points in it, which our children definitely will regard as incorrect, but in many ways are incorrect now. I drove my car to work. In that, there are 4 concepts which are almost redundant. Can anybody tell me what they might be? Does anybody know what of those, in that whole long sentence, which of those concepts are actually redundant and changed and don't exist anymore or in the process of going out? The first one is, I drove. Okay? We are living or moving into an era of self-drive cars. So what's the point? In a couple of years' time, we will definitely not be driving our cars. We have no need for driving cars. Okay, so the first thing is we don't need to drive cars anymore. I mean, that car has traveled a hell of a long time, 140,000 miles, and probably a lot more since that talk. It's driven that way without a single person in the loop, without anybody involved. And it's done so with a whole combination of technologies, of learning from people, of sensors on the side, of Google Maps, and linking into things like that, of linking into the information that's coming in from the cloud, and it can do that. So the next step, of course, is because we don't need people to drive cars, we can make our highways narrower, the lanes narrower, we can let the cars drive closer to each other, and in no time at all, we can increase the carrying capacity of our highways. And so instead of having to build new highways, we just let the cars drive themselves. The next step is my car. The concept of ownership of a car. I mean, have you ever thought about how useful your car is? You drive it to work and you leave it parked in the garage for the whole day. Then you drive it home again. I mean, how inefficient is that? I mean, how crazy is it that we should actually own our own cars? Wouldn't it be far more sensible for those cars to work all the time, and for us to have cars at our availability whenever we needed them? And it's already happening, the Zip car. The next thought in that is the idea that work is a destination. In many cases, and certainly in my case, I haven't had an office for many, many, many years. I'm a digital nomad. I work in coffee shops. I work in in my clients' offices. I work around the world. I sit around with my iPad, my iPhone, and my MacBook, and I can work anywhere, at any stage, at any point. The idea of us going to offices is largely a redundant concept. And the next redundant concept in that is the idea that work is something that we have for the long term, that we will have jobs in the future that we will start when we are 18 or 20 or 21 or 22 and retire from. Already, many people are working in matrix kind of organizations, in project work, who are working with colleagues, coming together for a specific project and moving away from it. So in a simple sentence like, I drove my car to work, we have a whole bunch of stuff which is already no longer valid. And you can be sure that our children will find them completely changed. Now, I know that you guys believe in a world that has right answers, that you believe that there are correct answers and it's the right way, there is a right way to do things and a wrong way to do things. And that if you do certain things and you follow certain processes, you'll get to the right end. And I know that because you answered to me that those lines are the same length, or a lot of you did, but they aren't. The world changed while we weren't watching. The world changed about 15 years ago, maybe even 20 years ago, and in almost every single industry that we have had anything to do with almost every single thing that human beings do, the rules are not the same as what the rules used to be. In every single case, they've changed. Technology, and the internet specifically, is disruptive. It makes things change. And I want to go through a couple examples of how things have changed. The first one is the music industry. Then the music industry changed dramatically. In fact, at one stage, people used to sell pieces of vinyl, and with an added value bit on the vinyl, on the plastic, they used to put music. So we had these plastic salesmen selling circles and circles of plastic, and to give you extra value for buying that plastic, you had music inserted onto it. But Apple changed that. I mean, Apple, probably the most innovative company in the world ever, changed the music industry completely. And what did they do? They created an MP3 player, but lots of people have MP3 players, or lots of people had produced MP3 players, but they linked that to iTunes, and they allowed us to buy music one song at a time at a reasonably low cost. And what did that do? It saved, in many cases, musicians and people who couldn't sell their round circles of plastic. But what Apple did very cleverly, of course, is that they don't own the content. They allow other people to own the content. They provided the delivery channel, changed the world. I want to talk a little bit about education a little bit later. It's the same thing. Who owns the content? Who owns the delivery channel? Let's talk about medicine for a bit. But medicine also changed. This guy, also speaking in a TED talk, talks about an invention that they had. These are a couple of geeks, some from Panama, some from Israel, some from other places in the world. And they have worked out that the biggest thing about cancer is detecting it early. And they have developed a device that uses this microbiological thing, which you can see in the middle of that little blue thing in the middle. And they've used a little box that can be 3D printed. In other words, you just download that box off the internet and print it on your 3D printer, if you own one or one at home or find one in the area. Put that out, and then it uses the insane computing ability of something that everybody carries in their pockets all the time, a cell phone. An iPhone runs the diagnostics. And on top of that, they've done it open source, so they're not making any money out of it. They've made that technology available for everybody to work with. And they've really in the point of just about breaking the back of one of the things that really make our lives quite difficult, this idea of getting cancer and detecting it early, so that everybody, almost everybody in the world, will be able to have cancer screening tests for almost nothing. How cool is that? It's also disrupted politics. We've disrupted politics. Now, that's the EFF being sworn in at Parliament. And who will argue with me that the EFF have probably been the most successful opposition in Parliament for how long? And what are they doing? And why are they so unbelievably successful at doing that? Because they understand technology and they understand social media. They know how to make this stuff work. They know how to start conversations. They know how to get that conversation to spread. They know how to get their grassroots supports working on it. They've still got a long way to go, but I'm telling you that the EFF are streets ahead of anybody else in politics in South Africa, or in fact in Africa, in making sure that their message is spread. The other thing is, it's changed conflicts. It's changed the conflict scenario. I mean, you look at what happened to the Israeli invasion of Gaza. Who lost the Gaza mind share, the world as far as public opinion? Were the Israelis, because the Palestinians were able to use and to put out tons and tons and tons of information that was shared with everybody around the world, and that became the world's opinion of what was going on. What were the Israeli Defense Force able to do? They put out infographics, okay, because they don't understand what's going on. That infographic carries zero weight compared to a real-time tweet that's looking at like one of the tweets that I showed you before, that's looking at somebody's shoes on the ground, or a video or a picture of something that's really happening at the time. Barack Obama's administration have started to see that is a problem. And they've taken a previous editor of Time magazine, and they're starting to try and understand how do they deal with the propaganda war, the social media propaganda war against ISIS. And what they've understood now is that the issue is not about the extremists, but the people who look as though they're joining in there. They're looking at what I call activists, the people who are the people who give a damn about anything. The most important thing now is not how we get messages out by using television or on platform and things like that. It's how do we get our activists working to achieve their goals. I mean, here is also Femin who are also really very good at getting people to understand and to see what's going on and to work with it. And they are building into the same kind of thing as what we do, which is directed activism. So our process of getting messages out is very similar to what ISIS is doing. We use a whole lot of tools, and we push those ideas into the internet, and we facilitate the transfer of those ideas to other people. And one of the other things that has changed in this understanding is that in communication now, we no longer have audiences. In the sort of like real world now, we've got this stuff going out to networks of people, and those networks of people are moving around and saying things to their friends and moving it backwards and forwards. That's a map of a discussion. That's a map of a whole lot of people that were talking about a single point. I'm not going to go into detail of it, but I'm just trying to illustrate to you that even the way that we talk to massive amounts of people have changed. I think that education, in a very big way, is going to change dramatically. In fact, the institutions that you work with are going to be very different, completely different, I would submit, in 10 or 15 years to what they are now. The first thing is that most educational institutions are based around the idea of owning content. Okay? We own content, we produce notes, we use books, and we use lectures, and that's the model around which most educational institutions are built. But content is free. We can't build our businesses on content. We can't build the stuff on content because you can get content anyway. This is the front page of the Khan Institute. Okay, the Khan Institute is a fantastic idea of taking education. It started with maths education and loading the lessons onto YouTube and allowing people to download those lessons off YouTube for free. Okay, so forever, and you see in the little line underneath, you can learn anything. It says, for free, for everyone, forever. Content is free. iTunes University does the same thing. You can go and get lecture notes of many, many, many different courses from Stanford, from Harvard, from everywhere, and you can learn from them. Your delivery channels of how education gets to anybody and how it moves around has also changed, and is going to change dramatically, because how can you restrict the access to education only to people who have got money and people who can get into a lecture hall or into a place like that? No, education is going to be delivered using many different tools. And the most important of those tools, of course, is mobile. And it's already happening around the world. It's already happening in Africa. It's already happening everywhere. So we don't need content. We don't even need lecturers. I mean, I was a lecturer. I was head of faculty. We don't need lecturers. Because we can get access to the very best lecturer in the world on a particular topic at a particular time. That changes what education is and how education is going to move. So what actually do we think that our education institutions are going to be in the future? They're probably going to be a place where people can do tutorials. They're probably going to be a place where people can sit for exams and have them marked. And they're probably going to be a place that allows certification. So things, even in this space, are going to change and change dramatically. Empowering innovations transform complicated, costly products that previously have been available to only a few people into simpler, cheaper products available to many. Empowering innovations create jobs for people who build, distribute, sell, and service those products. That's how this technology is changing things. That's how the world is constantly moving. That's the world that we live in, a world in which we have to experiment, a world in which we don't know the rules, a world in which everything has changed, a world in which communications will change and has changed, which education will change, has changed. All of these things are things that are affecting every single one of you. Guys, we are going to have to know how to use these tools, because without these tools and without working with these tools in a total sense, we are going to lose our ability to be relevant in the world. I think if you're not on Google, you can't be found on Google, you don't exist. If you don't have a LinkedIn profile which gives people the ability to link in with you and to understand who you are and what you stand for, people aren't even going to bother to look past you. All of these things, and I'm not saying that because I just want to be dramatic. I'm saying it because it's true. We do need to have this stuff around us. We do need to be able to link ourselves into these things. In the end, all that we know is that tomorrow is going to be different. The question is, are you ready? That's a question that I'm posing to you. Who of you think that you're ready for this new world, this disrupting world of technology? Who believes that they're ready? Well, hopefully in this conference, we're going to spend some time talking about that, and hopefully we're going to help you with some tools to get to understand how this stuff works and what's going on and how we can help you become more ready. And hopefully I've given you something to think about.